Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Road fatalities on the decline according to latest data from the Public Safety and Traffic Enforcement Branch. Concern over next steps of government in constitutional reform process. And later in sports, a rematch of last year's final for this season's JPL finale. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shane Masters and here are the details. The habeas corpus application hearing seeking the release of entertainer Vybz Kartel and two co-accused is to continue later this month. The matter was adjourned in the Supreme Court this morning. The application will be heard over 2 days, May 29 and 30. Attorney Isaac Buchanan filed the application on behalf of Kartel, whose given name is Adidja Palmer, Sean Storm Campbell, and Andre Matsu St. John. Isaac Buchanan, who represents Vybz Kartel, explained today's adjournment.
To be heard today. However, the judge was of the view that the Director of Public Prosecution is an interested party, as well as for the jurisprudence that proper submissions be put before the court by those parties.
The DPP is to be served with a copy of the application by 4 p.m. today. Now, the men are being held at the Tower Street Adult Correctional Center. They, along with Kahira Jones, were convicted on March 13, 2014 for the murder of Clive Lizard Williams. The case was sent back to the Court of Appeal by the Privy Council for a decision on whether they should face retrial for the 2011 murder. That hearing is set for June 10. So why was the application made today?
One can appreciate that the liberty of the men are left unanswered. The men are in no man's land as it is. One would call it la la land. One would be it's a lacuna in the law where you're not convicted, you're not charged, but you're held in abeyance. I think in terms of where the law is, that the legislators would have needed to make certain amendments to account for a situation where a conviction is quashed, but the matter is not yet before the court. And so for me, a day in prison is like 1,000 years.
At least one public affairs commentator is calling for greater dialogue between the government and opposition over changes to the constitution and Jamaica becoming a republic. As Kirkwright reports, Peter Espute believes that what is currently being exercised by both parties is what is termed a power play.
All eyes are on the government to see what will be its next step in the constitutional reform process. This after opposition leader Mark Golding instructed opposition members on the committee not to sign the final report, which will see Jamaica leaving the rule of the British monarchy. Speaking on Radio Jamaica's That's a Wrap on Sunday, public affairs commentator Peter Espute noted that despite making his position known at the PNP's annual conference last September, Mr. Golding should have been clear to the government.
When the CRC was started, Golding should have written and said, look, we're not going to take this two-phase thing. We're going to agree on the whole thing. We agree, we sign off on it. Then we have the referendum for the monarchy part. And the rest of it, we will already have agreed. We will just go ahead. But instead, no. They've played the government's generalship game and have left it to the 11th hour to object. Why don't our political leaders talk to each other? They have to buck up behind the speaker's chair before they're going to talk to each other? Come on. Mm-hmm. This is our business that we're talking about here. They must talk to each other and don't let it reach to this point.
In the meantime, President of the Jamaica Confederation of Trade Unions, JCTU, St. Patrice Ennis, says the Andrew Holness-led government has never made its position known on whether it wants the CCJ as Jamaica's final appellate court or not. However, he notes that what is currently being done is nothing more than a power play. Mr. Ennis is therefore suggesting more public consultations on the reform of the Constitution.
And not necessarily led by politicians, but led by persons who have a vested interest and persons who with knowledge about these questions and what particularly obtained in a constitution. So there's a clamoring from many sectors, and I would support that viewpoint, that there need to be a broader consultative approach with respect to this very important matter. Perhaps the most important.
Indeed. Mark Golding is just as guilty here because he has gone along with this business about if we and the JLP agree, then there's consensus. Both of them are guilty of this travesty.
Kirk Wright, TVJ News.
Concerns again this afternoon about passers-by taking pictures of crime scenes and posting of victims at crash scenes instead of assisting. This follows the latest crash in Manchester this morning, which led to the death of 47-year-old Carl Gale of a New Green district address in Manchester. It's reported that about 3 o'clock, Mr. Gale was driving a Nissan AD wagon when on reaching the vicinity of Russell Place Meadows, the vehicle crashed into the back of a tractor trailer that was laden with cement. He was pronounced dead at hospital. A passenger from the car was also treated. Her condition is unknown. Mr. Gale's brother Conrad believes he may have fallen asleep while on his way home from a party in Banana Ground, Belfield. Meanwhile, the brother believes Mr. Green could have been saved if he was assisted when the incident happened.
People are so insensitive, these days, because there is the accident and people is just passing, just taking photos, and nobody would want to even assist. It had to be the police who had to come here, maybe if somebody did actually try and assist in some way, them couldn't take him to the hospital. But, we must just take heed, because you just drive past like what them call them. You're not even being the good Samaritan. Like the Pharisee, just pass. Your day will come.
The Public Safety and Traffic Enforcement Branch is reporting a reduction in road fatalities since the start of the year. Now, 155 persons have died on the nation's roads between January 1 and May 13 this year. This is a reduction when compared to 159 the previous year. Notwithstanding, Jamaicans are being urged to obey the road code. According to the report, the months of February and March saw the highest number of deaths so far, with 38 each. But January and February has more crashes with 32 respectively. For May, there have been 9 crashes up to today and some 12 deaths. Meanwhile, head of the St. Mary Police Superintendent Bobette Morgan Simpson is again appealing to be careful on the road. She made the appeal as she gave an update on road fatalities for the parish at the recent Municipal Corporation meeting.
So far, we have had 153 accidents in the parish since the start of the year. And from those 153, 4 persons died. And these incidents took place within quick succession. The fatal accidents, quick succession. I'm hoping that we will not go back to the figures that we had last year. Last year we had 638 accidents for the year and 10 persons lost their lives as a result.
The body of a Clarendon man was removed from the Ria Minna in a section of the parish capital, Maypen, on Sunday. As you will hear in this report from Dwayne Anderson, his mother says it was a terrible Mother's Day twist for her.
Firefighters from the Maypen Fire Station using ropes, wires and other equipment to carefully navigate the treacherous waters of the Ria Minna on Sunday. Their objective was to remove a male body from the river. From the bridge above, curious residents watched on. In addition to the obvious risks in the deep water, crocodiles also frequent these parts. But after a couple hours, the firemen were able to skillfully remove the body. It was taken away to the morgue. The dead man has been identified as 29-year-old Demar Cole. His body was seen floating in the water by passers-by who alerted the police.
The last time I see him was Friday night.
You don't live with him?
He lives with me, but in Edin not so.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm go and come, walk up and down and go and come.
For his loved ones, it's an awful Mother's Day reality.
The Lord give it and the Lord take it. So if it's his time, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm saddened because it is Mother's Day. If this is my Mother's Day gift, there's nothing I can do about it. It already happened. And I can't blow back breath in him.
God, man, I had to cry. That is crying to know that this is a Mother Day when we should be happy amongst family. And that be saddened.
The Clarendon police are investigating. They will work to ascertain if any foul play was involved in the man's death. It is something the grief-stricken mother Sonia Johnson will want answered, as she says her son isn't known to frequent the river for a swim or even fishing.
No, we don't normally go by the river. I always walk past. He will stop and look down there, but he now go down there. He will stop and look.
So you still wonder what really happened?
Yes.
Dwayne Anderson, TVJ News.
And it's time for a break here on the Midday News. Stay with us, more stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News, and it's now time for the Business Minute.
The Bank of Jamaica has signed a financing agreement with the French Development Agency. In a release, the central bank says the agreement is for the implementation of Phase 2 of the bank's project to assess climate-related financial risks in Jamaica. The first phase of the project started in December 2022 and is supported by the AFD and the European Union. Funding was also received from the EU Latin America Caribbean Investment Facility. The project supports the BOJ and the Financial Services Commission in assessing climate-related risks within the financial system. The BOJ says it, along with the FSC, will incorporate those risks into supervisory guidelines, practices, and macroprudential policy formulation. U.S. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has urged the Federal Trade Commission to pump the brakes on Chevron Corporation's proposed $53 billion acquisition of Hess Corporation. Mr. Schumer said the deal would give oil majors more leverage to raise gas prices. In October last year, Chevron agreed to buy Hess for $53 billion in stock to gain a bigger U.S. oil footprint and a stake in rival ExxonMobil's massive Guyana discoveries. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Hal Shane Burke.
And the time now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, the government of Guyana has moved to prevent the continued industrial action by teachers on Monday. Labour officer Danishwar Dianarine wrote to both the Guyana Teachers Union (GTU) and the Ministry of Education, inviting them to conciliation talks. On Sunday, the Ministry of Education wrote to the Minister of Labour, Joseph Hamilton, inviting his ministry to intervene in the matter with the GTU. The GTU, in a statement, said while it is very cognizant of attending the conciliation meeting, the meeting will not derail them from their planned engagement. On the international scene, Russian President Vladimir Putin has replaced his defense minister Sergei Shoigu with a civilian. Shoigu was criticized for his handling of the invasion of Ukraine. The Kremlin said Shoigu has now been appointed Secretary of Russia's Security Council. He will also oversee the country's military-industrial complex. And at least 37 people have died and more than a dozen are injured on Indonesia's Sumatra island. That's after heavy rains triggered flash flooding and caused a cold lava flow from an active volcano. Most of the deceased are from the Agam Regency, where more than 100 buildings and houses have also been affected. And those are the top regional and international stories. I'm Carrie Simpson.
And we head to a quick break. When we come back, Jordan Ford will have your midday sports report.